On Saturday afternoon in Reiger Park, Boksburg, gunmen in 2 cars drove into a neighborhood and opened fire randomly on a group of 6 people. 6 people died. 3 were injured. Among the dead was a 29-year-old father who was holding his son in his arms when he was shot. He took the bullet to save his child's life and died on the spot, falling face first while still holding his boy. A 40-year-old woman who ran from her home after hearing those gunshots, terrified for her children, was shot by the attackers as well. This happened all in broad daylight. This happened in Gauteng, South Africa's economic powerhouse, the province that houses Johannesburg and Pretoria. And most people watching this probably didn't even know it happened until you heard me say it. That's the problem. That's the entire problem in one sentence. A mass shooting in Gauteng, not some remote area, not a crime hotspot that politicians use as an excuse to do nothing, but Gauteng. And it barely registers in national consciousness. 6 people died in broad daylight. A father dying while holding his son. A mother shot while trying to protect her children. And the story gets maybe one news cycle before we all move on to the next crisis, the next scandal, the next piece of outrage content that'll dominate social media for about 48 hours on Twitter as well. The shooting happened following the funeral of an alleged gang member. The anti-gang unit had been monitoring the area since October 27th, expecting retaliatory attacks. They knew violence was coming, they were watching, and it still happened. 6 people still died because knowing violence is coming and actually preventing it are apparently 2 completely different things in South Africa. The ward councillor's response was telling, oh, I'm sure it's a gang thing. It's just a drug thing, you know. Because what else can it be? There is a resignation in that statement that's genuinely very depressing. This is just what happens now. Gangs shoot up neighborhoods, kids die, drug wars claim innocent lives, fathers die protecting their children, and we all just shrug and say, what else can it be? Just a drug thing. As if there were no other options, no solutions, and no way to stop this from being our reality. National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola did show up to meet with the Gauteng Acting Police Commissioner. They announced the deployment of additional police officers and specialized units to the area. Premier Panyaza Lesufi said the province requires massive support to deal with escalating violence and pledged immediate assistance to affected families. Okay, so there was a response. There were statements, there were deployments. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Why does it take a mass shooting to get that response? Why weren't those additional officers and specialized units already there before all those parents and kids died? When the anti-gang unit was literally monitoring the entire area, expecting violence. Why doesn't this massive support come when they actually need it? Why after bodies hit the ground? Community members are demanding increased police visibility. They've been demanding increased police visibility, saying this is just one of the many violent and deadly attacks in the area. Because this isn't new. This isn't unprecedented. This is a pattern. Reiger Park isn't some isolated incident. It's part of an ongoing crisis that we've all collectively decided to accept as normal. And that's what's criminally ignored here. When there's shootings and everything, we don't even hear about it. We just heard of this one because more people died this time. Gauteng has reached a point where communities live in constant fear. The fact that drug wars are claiming innocent lives regularly enough that it barely makes news anymore. The fact that a father holding his son can be gunned down in broad daylight and most South Africans don't even hear about it. That's scary. It is terrifying. Think about what it takes to make headlines in South Africa right now. A mass shooting where 6 people need to die, and then they'll be in national news for weeks. There should be parliamentary inquiries. There should be emergency sessions. There should be a comprehensive plan to address gang violence that goes beyond deploying more officers and pledging assistance. But instead, we get a news cycle, some statements from officials, and then everyone moves on because there's always another crisis waiting. The truth is, we have normalized violence to a degree that would be unthinkable in most countries. We've accepted that certain areas are just dangerous. We're living with it. We've accepted that gang violence is just part of life. We've accepted that innocent people will die in crossfire. We've accepted that children will grow up witnessing murders and becoming murderers themselves. We've accepted that fathers will use their bodies as shields for their sons. And the most damning part, this shooting happened in Gauteng, not in a province that can claim poverty or a lack of resources as an excuse, not in a rural area where police presence is genuinely difficult to maintain. In Gauteng, the land of gold, the province that generates a third of South Africa's GDP, the province with Johannesburg, Africa's financial hub, the province that should have the resources, infrastructure, the capacity to prevent this kind of violence. If Gauteng can't keep its communities safe, what hope does the rest of the country have? If the economic powerhouse of South Africa has areas where gunmen can drive through in broad daylight and just randomly massacre 6 people while police who were expecting violence couldn't stop it, what does that say about the state of law enforcement nationwide? The answer is uncomfortable. It says we've failed, completely and utterly failed. We've failed to address gang violence. We've failed to get illegal firearms off the streets. We've failed to provide adequate police resources. We've failed to prosecute criminals effectively. We've failed to create economic opportunities that might prevent young people from joining gangs in the first place. We've failed at every level, from prevention to response to persecution. And instead of treating each of these incidents as the national emergencies they are, we've developed this collective numbness. Another shooting? Oh no, that's terrible. Shame, man. 6 dead people? Oh, awful. A father died saving his son? Oh, shame, man. Heartbreaking. And then we scroll past to the next story to fill our dopamine-infested brains. Next outrage, next distraction. That numbness is criminal. The normalization is criminal. The acceptance is criminal. The fact that serious, horrific crimes like the Reiger Park shooting get actively ignored, not by officials who at least showed up, but by society at large, is absolutely criminal. A 29-year-old man died holding his son. That child will grow up knowing his father took a bullet meant for him. That child will carry that trauma forever. A woman was shot trying to protect her children. Multiple families are now planning funerals. Multiple communities are now more terrified than they were before to even plan those funerals because it might just happen again. And in a few days, most of South Africa will have completely forgotten this happened and will have completely forgotten I even made a video about this. That's the real crime. Not just the shooting itself, but our collective decision to treat this as just another incident in a long list of South African incidents. Just another tragedy in a country that produces tragedies faster than we can process them. Just another reminder that some South African lives are considered expendable, their deaths inevitable, their suffering acceptable, collateral damage in a war on crime that we're clearly losing. Reiger Park deserves better. Gauteng deserves better. South Africa deserves better. But we'll only get better when we stop accepting violence as normal, when we stop treating mass shootings as background noise, when we demand that every single life lost to gang violence matters enough to fundamentally change how we approach safety and security in this country. Until then, we are all complicit in the violence we've chosen to ignore. My name is the Sambit. Like, share, and subscribe, and like always, I'll see you next time.